Let's do this.
Here.
Hey, everybody. We're here on the Diffuse Network Zoomcast. I'm here with Lance Barrett. I'm Angie Stryker, and we're calling this the 325 because that sounds right for what we're talking about today. We're here with spiritual entrepreneurs who are out there crushing it in the world for the kingdom of God in new and innovative ways. And so it only makes sense for us to start with the one and only Jesse Dukes, who's here with us today from the greenhouse. So,
Yo,
Jesse, hey, how's it going?
doing great. It's Friday.
It's Friday. Lance, how are you feeling today?
Oh, happy that it's Friday also. Just it's been a full week, so ready to rest for sure.
Right on. I just got off of a golf game where I was crushing it on my drive, and then everything else was crap, and that's okay.
That's how it works, right? Always.
Couldn't putt to save my life. That's all right. All right, Jesse, let's dig into your world. What's happening over there for you? So my first question is, give us an idea about the context that you're serving. Like, what is it that breaks your heart about the people group that you are serving currently? Tell us about that.
So last year, we are coming up on our 1 year anniversary on September 4th. So stuff has been kind of percolating for me for a while about young adults. I run a therapy practice and I do a lot of stuff with adolescents, kind of like 16 to 18, but then also like failure to launch stuff into 20s, 24, 28, in our local town of kind of Peachtree City, Fayette County area. Classic suburb of a big city, pretty indicative of, I think, most suburban areas. Not a college town. So that's kind of the key dynamic. And so I was engaging with a lot of these people. A lot of kids were just stuck at home, 22, 24. Some hadn't gone to school. Some went to school and had moved back. And so we're just engaging like, okay, why are you stuck? And one of the first questions I kind of asked was like, what's your social network? Where do you connect with people? Like, how are you meeting people? How are you kind of moving forward in your relationships? And the answer I consistently heard back was like, there's nothing. There's nothing. Like I can go to church, but even at church, like we're the kind of weird outcast group. There's a college and career ministry, but it's kind of siloed and sidelined, and they're like weirded out if I go to the youth ministry. And then if I share my ideas with the adults, they're like, you whippersnappers, like you can't have that. That's against church policy. So just a lot of not fitting because they didn't have kids. They're like, oh yeah, they'd love me if I was, had kids in the nursery or something like that. But in that in between areas, just no space. So as a spiritual entrepreneur tends to do, I was just like, why not something here? And then the Holy Spirit was like, hey, why don't you make something? And I was like, oh. So I was kicking around, and this is kind of one of those cool ways that I think God has oftentimes worked in my life is like, and I was thinking about stuff, and I was kind of keeping stuff in the hopper, and I don't, I like to get kind of confirmation for I'm opening this door, and so I've been thinking about this and waiting for probably about 2 or 3 months about a solution, and then finally one day another pastor friend, or he's a youth pastor, was like, hey man, still do house idea thing, like, because I talked to several different people about it, and I was like, yeah. He's like, I've had like young adults like come up to me and just say, is there anything for people our age?
Mm.
And your name kept kind of in mind. So he's like, hey, I have a list of like 12 students and former students and different people. Do you want to do it? And I was like, okay, God, that's the move kind of the Spirit. So that kind of got things kicking back in September, and I can dig into how it morphed and we had to pivot, and how we have pivoted, but that was kind of what originally got it going.
I love it. And so currently you have a space. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your space that you're using?
Yeah, so that was part of the pivot. It was like initially we were meeting shop. It was just Thursday nights, 7 to 9, and I was like, this is not Bible study, although we're going to talk about spiritual themes, therapy, although I'm going to bring in kind of therapy kind of insights. I was like, this is a space where it's a community for supporting young adults in the process of adulting. So the idea of the greenhouse is you don't live in a greenhouse. It's a temporary space where there's kind of like nurturance and light, and you figure out what your identity is and you get support, but then you get planted in kind of a final destination. So like that was kind of the branding of it and the thought process. So we met at the coffee shop for a while, and that was really kind of as far as my mind went. Another one of those kind of cool God things was I've been thinking about doing like a community center kind of vision for another spiritual entrepreneur project to do called the Gathering People. That's a nonprofit that I helped start. Um, and so somebody had kind of brought that back up, and it just kind of put the idea of a community center back in my mind, but it got fused together with what if young adults like ran that, and it kind of became like a campus house, like the Georgia Tech CCF house. So I went to CCF. Lance is currently, aren't you in this Georgia Tech CCF house?
I'm like literally in one of the offices right now.
Perfect. So like I had this amazing experience. Angie and I had an experience of like being in a campus ministry on a college campus, a bunch of 18 to 24-year-olds being in this space where there was, empowerment and mission and community and fellowship and meals. And so that was kind of when I started to kind of dream and be like, wow, I wonder if that can happen with this group. I wonder if we can get like a space. My parents have a fantastic space. They just moved houses to be in our area of Sonoya, and their house was just kind of sitting there. They tried to sell it. They tried to rent it, and God just kind of kept blocking it. And so through several different things, finally, stupid me was like, wait, I see what's going on. Holy Spirit kind of led us down that path. So like in March, it was like, I think we could, kind of maybe do this. I started dreaming up an intern program, put out an application for the existing kind of people that were in the greenhouse ministry to say, hey, we want to take interns. There's going to be a residency piece. You will live in this house, and you'll kind of take over and help run the ministry. So we did that, and then started in June. Kicked it off in June. We've been going through June and July, and we're doing like a 3-month trial through August. And it's going great. And so I think now our decision is we're probably going to re-up through hopefully the end of the year, and then make a decision to do like a year-long lease and keep it rolling.
So cool. So different, so innovative, so fun. We say the 3-2-5. So the 3 is community and mission and worship. So your community, you would say 18 to 30. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, probably like 28-ish, but I mean, yes, it does go up to into 30s. There's one, in fact, there's a wedding that's happening for one of the, couples that are in there, and one's 28 and one's I think like 32. And so yeah, fun stuff.
Love it. And then the mission would be, you put better words around this, but I heard you say things like leadership development. I heard you say about a space, a safe place, a place to be, a place to gather, a place to grow. What else would you say is like the succinct mission of the place?
So our express mission is gathering and growing the next generation of community leaders.
Excellent.
So we gather them. It's a space to gather them, put them together. It's a space to grow them. And the idea is that what we are incubating in that space is the leaders, the future leaders of that community. And so they learn community service. And that's kind of the unique piece of in campus ministry, you send them out to the world, right? And what we're doing in the greenhouse, the idea is they don't stay living in the greenhouse, but they do get planted in leadership in the community that they're also kind of serving and building community in. So
awesome. So then we think in the Diffuse Network, we would say that when community and mission and worship come together in that beautiful space, that Venn diagram where that is overlapped, and that is where the mystery of Christ is. And so for y'all at the greenhouse, what is the worship piece that just makes this come alive, that this is the church of tomorrow?
Yeah, that's like, so a conversation we were having last night, you were asking me a little bit earlier, like what are kind of some of the fun wins? And so our context from the very beginning was like, okay, I know we're going to do shared meals. And in the beginning, I was kind of doing like adulting-ish talks. And I said from the beginning, like, there's going to be kind of like therapy pieces, which are not specifically intrinsically spiritual, all those spiritual principles in them. And there's going to be other times where we just do, kind of Bible study. And we try to balance that. Like, this is supposed to be a space where people that are far from God and completely don't have Jesus on the radar at all can still come and belong, because that's a huge piece of Jesus's ministry. Like, his ground floor was eating, meals with tax collectors and sinners and prostitutes. And so that is what the front door of the greenhouse is always still supposed to be. And so it's interesting kind of how we transition into worship because some people aren't, that's not what they're coming for, right? They're coming for community and the mission piece. And they're like, wait, what is this, like kind of Jesus stuff? And so one of the girls who shared last night, she, during the week, she reached out and she's actually the one who's getting married. And she was like, hey, can I lead the discussion this week? So that's always awesome when like somebody's like stepping up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you just love that. I was like, yes, 100% you can. So then she was like, can you like kind of support me? And I was like, yeah, totally. So, but she does it on her own, finds her own scripture, and she picks this, it's like Philippians 3, I think 21. It's the last verse of chapter 3. And it's about like Christ transforming our lowly bodies into his glorious body. And then her theme was just about transformation. And she's like, I'm pregnant, like my body's obviously like transforming, but she was just like reflecting on her own process of like, man, I've really matured a lot through the last year of like being involved in this ministry. And she's like, I'm just kind of a different person. And we were all laughing because like when she came in, like many times in the very beginning, I was like, oh my God, I cannot let this girl talk because like she'd like trauma dump on everybody and like tell these stories about like, yeah, I used to work for like the Ren Fest and I was homeless for a bunch of years. And like, here's my bag of mushrooms, like just out there, like what probably a professing follower of Jesus, but just very out there. Right. And so it's so cool. Her kind of whole point was like, Jesus is the one that's like doing this in me. And so it was just, we kind of had like so many of those kids that are still in the discussion, like they're like, yeah, I still don't know about this whole Christ thing. Like, I'm not sure about that. But in those discussions, just our worship is just constantly, we do a bunch of stuff, but then come back and say, but don't forget, this is all about Jesus. Like that's what this is all essentially about.
Beautiful. Love it. Yay. Okay, so that's the 3. Mission community worship. We've heard about that. The 2 bit for the Diffuse Network is this idea of playground and dugout. And so our playground is where we go out in our context, we fall down, we make big mistakes, we we do all kinds of fun stuff, we're experimenting. But then we also come back to a dugout, which we know is not the exact opposite, but the dugout is where like on the baseball field, you go back in for strategy, encouragement, some refreshment, a pat on the butt, and get back out there. You can do this. And so tell me a little bit about your dugout locally. Where do you go for your encouragement and your get back out there kind of attitude?
Yeah. So I'm super lucky to, Rick Harper lives close to me. He's a great friend of ours. He's a part of the Diffuse, kind of network. And so he's a big part of that. And also another thing that's been really helpful. So he's kind of on one side. He's like very far outside, but knows what we're doing. And I just went to the beach with him for a week. And so we were kicking around like a whole bunch of different stuff. And with the Gathering people, the nonprofit, so I have another partner, Katie Ray, who is kind of like in and she helps me with stuff, but she's also like on the outside. And so when I get frustrated and when I get like, kind of annoyed or, just need encouragement, I go to both of them. And because I'm the one really like still holding the ball and like driving the greenhouse forward right now, but they're both invested in enough ways that they'll help practically if they need to, but they're also kind of separate enough that they're not in it as much as I am and they can see stuff that I can. So
Love
super
that.
helpful.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, so many apostle-like people, spiritual entrepreneurs are out there just lone wolfing it, doing it, moving things forward, but don't have people that they can go to and say what you just said. So that's so important. So good that you have that, especially locally. And then the opposite of that, again, is like the playground, the idea of this experimenting, falling down. I think of the old school 80s playgrounds where you're on these like death trap playground equipment and stuff. So tell me something that's been a big whiff like recently, maybe even in the last year, like something you tried that you failed epically at. We call them the big fat failures in the Diffuse Network because we want to celebrate failure because it tells us that you're trying something, that we're trying something, and you got to fail to move the ball forward, I think.
Yeah, and this is a good one because, well, it still might again be a failure. But the first time we had this idea before the house kind of came online, and we were because like the coffee shop space was kind of like the energy was just dwindling, right? It's like initially there was like 30 something kids that wanted to come, and then like after Christmas it had dwindled down to like 8, And everybody's like, oh, I'm doing different stuff and I like it, but it wasn't, kind of going. So we're like, well, let's do this. We'll do like a party at like a fancy dinner. And I knew somebody that like runs a restaurant and they could like open up the space for us. Because I was like, I think this was after Diffuse Network, and somebody had said, like, man, you need to just like give some people leadership and like let them run with some things. So I was like, cool, I'll let them do that. Nobody took it anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like, okay, we're gonna do this in 6 weeks, and we're meeting every 2 weeks, and like next thing you know, it's like 2 weeks away and nothing has happened. And it's like that did not work,
That did
right?
not work.
So and in the beginning, everybody's like, yeah, it's a great idea. That sounds like fun. We could do blah, 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 blah. But like, I realized if I wasn't driving that forward, it was not going to happen.
Gotcha.
So what's kind of cool though is, like I said, our year anniversary is coming up. And now this time we have like a house parent who has been like super helpful, but she's transitioning out. Her name's Stephanie. And our 1 year anniversary is coming up, and she was like, we should do a gala. And we're actually going to do it at that same place that we were planning to do the party. But now there's a lot more like energy. We have interns, and there's like a planning commission, and like they're running with it some more. And so like things are actually happening now that there's more kind of support and buy-in. So I'll let you know how the Greenhouse Gala on September 4th goes.
Very cool.
Wants to come, wants to support, wants to check it out. It'll be at Van Zant's in Peachtree City, September 4th, 7 p.m. You can get a ticket.
Very cool. And that's so cool because God wastes nothing. I love thinking about it like that, right? So, everything seems tough when it goes badly or like it's a failure, but there's all kinds of great things that can come out of it, obviously. So, fantastic. Here's my last question, then I'm going to hand it to Lance. So, we talk about 325, then the 5 would be the apest. We have apostles. This comes straight from Ephesians 4. God gave some to be apostles, some to be prophets, some to be evangelists, some to be shepherds, and some to be teachers. And so we know that the apostle tends to run forward and be the foundation layer, and they can see visions that others can't. And that's what we're celebrating in the Diffuse Network. However, we also know that they can run on their own so far that they never have a team around them that keeps it sustainable so that the apostle can pivot into the next thing that God's calling them to. And so when you're looking at your team, apostle, you spiritual entrepreneur, tell me something about a gift that's like risen up recently, maybe in the prophet, evangelist, shepherd, teacher space, that you feel like you're trying to raise that up in leadership into your team, or just something that's kind of come about for that as just a reminder for us to always be looking around and saying, oh, you're the shepherd I need, or you've got this teacher quality that I need on our team.
Yeah. I wanted it to be evangelists because I wanted some people to come around and be like, I'm going to go spread the good news of the greenhouse and, help this thing grow. But God was smarter than me than he often is, as he often is. But he has given a ton of like shepherds recently that have like kind of come out of the woodwork. And that's definitely more of what we need, because I'm pretty like shepherd heavy in life normally, but I run a therapy practice. I have 3 children. I have my role in this is pretty much strictly apostle, and I do a fair amount of teaching. So don't really need help teaching, and doing the apostle kind of part. And so, but so many times that house is open, kids are coming in, things are happening, but I can't be there all the time to be that shepherd. And so it was kind of cool. Literally last Thursday, 2 different people reached out to me during the week, and they were like, "Hey man, I've love what you're doing. Can I just come and do dinner and just kind of hang out? And I just love that age group, and I just want to kind of pour into them, and I'll just be the fly on the wall that kind of helps support people." And it's like, yes, yes, you can. I mean, it's literally 3 different people did that thing, and they all have great kind of shepherding kind of gifts. So I love that it's what you need. God's just, I'm going to bring that and supply it.
I love it. And then empowering them, getting out of the way and empowering those leaders to step up and do that. That, I think that takes a humility that is sometimes as apostles, we don't want to relinquish that control, but it's so much better when we do, obviously, when the body of Christ is built out on our team.
It's actually been helpful, for me, because I said from the very beginning, it's I just kind of realized I do not have any extra bandwidth to do this. I have bandwidth to do one role, and I will do that. And anything else that happens is just going to have to be, God's going to have to do it. And so that's how, because I don't think I naturally start in the apostle world, but I just get passionate about things. And if I'm passionate about it enough, I'm going to obviously like do it. But this has been so helpful of I have other things going on. So God has just very clearly been like, you cannot overfunction. It just won't, just it's just not going to work. So it's helped me really just be like, okay, well, we're going to do this. And if that's not enough, then I'm just going to take that as a sign from God that he's got some other plan and he'll have to bring along the resources of people to fill in those gaps.
Love it. Awesome. Thanks, Jesse. Lance, what are you thinking about as you're listening to all this good stuff?
Honestly, I'm kind of like, I'm in awe. I'm just amazed at God and seeing what that He's done. Because I got to like meet and get to know
Yes.
Jesse, right?
Yes. Yes.
Like
Lance
to
was in the
think,
car with us driving to the Diffuse network where a lot of this was like just percolating.
yes. And one of the ideas that I found so fascinating was kind of creating a space that does exactly like what you're describing, where it incubates and with the intention of sending off, right? Very much using that parent-child metaphor that's in the scriptures of like, we want to love you in this period, but then to be sent out. Um, and then also like as you were sharing some like a passage in Mark came up to mind, the mystery of the growing seed, right?
Mm.
Where we do what we can to like plant the seed and and like whether or not the farmer like the seed will grow, these sprouts will grow the bud, and so on and so forth. And also the last thought that kind of like came up that got me excited was oftentimes when we step into places to serve, God's kingdom, we get a lot from it. Um, which is like a little switcheroo. I love when God does the switcheroo. And so I guess I wanted to know like I got to hear about it when it was percolating. And then now we're here, 8 months later. In what ways have you like received and been blessed by like serving? In what ways have you like seen the gospel, seen Jesus differently and deeper in this process?
Yep, great question. In the Mark passage, that's one of my favorites too, because the little line that like always stuck with me, it says, the farmer goes to sleep and it grows up on its own, and it says, and he knows not how. Right? It's
Yes.
like I love that. It's like it grows, and I don't even know how it grows. I have no freaking clue. I just plant the seed, and then some kind of magic happens. Um, and so in those two ways, so that's the first of two ways. The one is just it has just reignited my faith, of like of so many of those stories of like, well, this is not going to work unless God kind of shows up, and then he shows up like so many times of that happening and it's really helped me kind of just operate in faith in kind of messiness because like, yeah, so many things that we do are messy. Like last night, like this was, as you know, story, there's a kid that comes who like has disordered eating patterns. And so like a lot of times like we do dinners and it's like, oh, he's not going to eat something like yada, yada, yada. And so my buddy, Nate, who offered to do dinner, like it was very much like just all the random things from his freezer that like, so it was like frozen chicken nuggets and like onion rings and like all these, things or whatever. And, on one part of me is like, come on, we want to make like a good meal. But it's so funny because one of the things that he had was dino nuggets. Like, like the little like chicken nuggets that are like in the shape of dinosaurs.
Oh, I know Dino Nuggies for
And
sure.
the thing that was like the biggest hit of all was Dino Nuggies, and that kid who like never eats like makes a giant play. He's like, "Oh, I freaking love Dino Nuggies." He's like, "That's one of the things that like I actually will eat." So it's so beautiful, right? Stuff like that like you're like, I can't plan that, I can't make that happen, but then you just see that mystery of like, how's the growth going to happen? I don't know. Dino Nuggets, you know, that's how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
The other piece is and this has been like interesting, is like seeing how it blesses my kids. So like I have, especially my girls, and also just me. So like tomorrow, Saturday, somebody has a lake house. We're going down to Lake Wedowee. We'll be, Angie, in your neck of
Nice.
the woods. Yep, we'll be out on Lake Wedowee with like jet skis and the tube or whatever getting pulled around. And it's just so cool because my kids had just been like, we want to go to a lake sometime. Like, we want to go like do that. We never get to do fun stuff. And it's like, oh, cool. This just happens as kind of like an event for the greenhouse, and they get to come along. they've come several times just because they're like, hey, we want to hang out with you. And I'm like, yes, you can always come do what I do. And I remember Grayson Harper and, Garrett Harper, like being at the CCF house and interacting with them. And it's just so cool to like see that happen with my own kids as they're like building relationships with college kids and getting poured into and being told that they're annoying and, getting loved on and razz and seeing them like, build social skills. So all that's just killer.
That is an awesome bonus. I love that. Well, Jesse, you're always so inspiring. Everything you're into, what you're creating, what you're doing. I mean, it's always for the kingdom purpose. It's always for bringing Jesus to people who maybe don't know him very well yet, and always bringing love to places that need light. And so I'm thankful that you're willing to step in and do this with us. Our very first Zoom cast here for the 325 with the Diffuse Network. I would be remiss if I didn't say that the summit is on the calendar, February 6th through the 8th in Charleston once again. It is so fun. It's so inspiring to be around other spiritual entrepreneurs who are doing amazing things like Jesse, and just hearing stories and sharing and just being encouraged to go back out there and do what we feel like God's leading us to do. So hopefully people will join us there. And so thanks, Lance, for doing this with me. I'm always love spending time with you, and I know you're super busy, so thank you. But that's all for us today for our little Zoom cast. Thanks for joining us, y'all, and we'll tune in next time.
We out.
We out.